Hey guys, I'm glad we're back. We're here to really quickly finish passive transport, and then we're going to move on to active transport. Remember the main difference between these two different categories of transport, that being passive and active, is the use of energy. Okay, so active transport is all about using energy, whereas passive is not. Okay, so far we've talked about two types of diffusion, which would be passive transport, and again, no energy is required, and we are moving solutes from a high concentration to a low concentration. With the discussion of osmosis, which is another type of passive transport, here we're actually not moving the solutes this time. Here we are moving the water. So we're moving the solvent, which is a bit different. And it's going to make it a little bit harder, but that's okay. So in osmosis, water is able to move across the membrane. Okay, it can just scoot on through. And water is going to move from less concentrated areas to more concentrated areas. Okay? I don't know if you guys have ever made juice based on those like frozen concentrates you can get at Walmart. Your parents might have, or you may have seen them do it before. My mom used to when I was younger, but they're these little frozen cans, and they're like 100% concentrate of juice, or like grapes or oranges. Anyways, what they do with these frozen concentrates is they just stick it in a blender and they'll pour water in it, and that's going to dilute the concentration, essentially. So that's why we are adding water to that higher concentrated area, okay? Because our goal is to equal out the concentration. So, for example, if I have that 100% frozen concentrate of orange, and I want to make some fake orange juice, I'm going to get that concentrate, I'm going to stick it in a blender, and I'm going to pour I don't know, maybe like 3 cups of water in there. So now instead of 100% concentrate, I now have 75% concentrate. Okay, I'm making up numbers. This is not exact math, but that's the idea. The more water you add, the less concentrated that solution is. So we have 3 types of osmosis, just depending on how or which direction the water is flowing, and what the cell looks like based on that. So when a cell is in a hypertonic solution, okay, hypertonic, that means that all the water has left the cell and it appears shrinked or shrunk and shriveled, okay, because that water is leaving the cell because it's traveling towards the higher concentration. That means that the higher concentration of solutes must be on the outside of the cell. Makes sense. So if we take a look at hypotonic, which I like to call hippotonic, because hippos are large animals. They have big round bellies. They look very, very full all the time. In the hippotonic solution, we see water flowing into the cell because the cell has the higher concentration of solutes in comparison to its environment. So the cell is getting flooded with water, and it's starting to get so big that it could potentially burst because it swells so much. I think of when I'm blowing a bubble with gum. You know, when I just have been chewing gum and I take it out of my mouth, it kind of looks like it's in that hypertonic solution where all the water has left it. But if I chew it and blow a bubble, I'm putting air into it, and when you put too much air into it, the bubble just pops, right? And then of course that leaves us with being right in the middle, which is isotonic solution. In an isotonic solution, there's the same amount of concentration of solutes on both sides. So on the inside of the cell and the outside of the cell, there's no net movement of water. That means that even if you have 5 milliliters of water going into the cell, 5 milliliters of water is also exiting the cell at the same time. So it essentially looks as though there's no movement of water because it equals out, it balances. Now, we're going to skip the activity for now. We're just going to jump into active transport real quick. Again, active transport, you need energy in order to make something happen. Again, we have 3 examples of active transport. The first one being a sodium-potassium pump. You may see this just called simply a protein pump. This is our second example overall, looking at cellular transport involving a protein. Okay, so remember that first example was part of the passive transport, and now we're looking at an example of active transport that uses a protein to assist its movement of cells, or excuse me, molecules, its movement of molecules. And these ions or molecules must be forced across the cell membrane. That's why we need the protein, okay? And the protein is using, of course, the cell's energy and then pumping those molecules across the cell membrane. So I don't know about you guys, but when I hear the word pump, 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 pump it up. You gotta have some energy to pump, right? So anytime I see pump, I'm gonna know that's active transport immediately because it requires energy. This is also important to talk about because they're moving, I keep wanting to say across, they're moving against their concentration gradient. So when we talked about diffusion in the passive transport video, the molecules are moving from a high concentration to a low concentration to kind of balance out. Okay, and here they're actually moving from a low concentration to a high concentration. Theoretically, we're like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. But some cells actually need it in order for the organs that they make to function properly. And so it's extremely important. And in this video, if you just pause me real quick to watch it, it's very short, but it'll explain a recap of what we've already discussed in a span of like a minute and a half. And it gives you great visuals. And then B, why cells would need to move against their concentration gradient. Okay, and it even gives you an example. Super important and very fascinating. Okay, so now let's talk about the last 2 examples of active transport. Endocytosis and exocytosis. Believe it or not, you've actually heard of these terms before, just not in an uber amount of detail. Remember week 3, we were talking about endosymbiosis? Wow, those kind of sound familiar. Yeah, we dissected that word, endosymbiosis, and we learned that endo meant in or inside of. Same thing here, right? Endo. Then we talked about symbiosis, meaning to like live together. And the endosymbiosis or endosymbiotic theory, if we recall, is all about how the eukaryotic cell developed. Originally, we had different prokaryotic cells. One of them was really big, and it came across these 2 very small prokaryotic cells, over time, of course. The first one was the mitochondria, and it essentially engulfed this mitochondrial cell, which was a prokaryote, into itself. But as opposed to digesting it, it lived in harmony with it. So that's where the symbiosis came into effect. And then the same thing after a couple million years happened with the chloroplast, and eventually through evolution and symbiosis, it eventually evolved into the eukaryotic cell, which of course is this type of cells that we're made of and plants are made of. So it's an extremely important process to learn about, because it's also something that our cells do every day. So they're engulfing molecules that are outside of themselves, outside of the cells, through endocytosis. It's bringing them inside of the cell, and the way it does this is, so we have the cell membrane, and it kind of starts to create a hole, and it pinches off a piece of that membrane to encapsulate and create a vesicle with the solutes inside of it, and then it brings that vesicle inside the cell. Okay? And of course, this requires energy. That's why it's under our active transport topic. And then same thing with exocytosis, except the opposite direction. So here we have the vesicle of solutes inside the cell already, and they are exiting the cell. So as the vesicle opens to release those solutes, it then just rejoins the cell membrane. Easy peasy. And we can remember endo because it means inside. They sound very similar. And then exo means outside of or exit. Okay. And I've got 2 GIFs to just demonstrate that process and how it works in like a short video form or format. So on the left we have endocytosis, where this purple molecule is sitting on the top of the cell membrane and it engulfs, okay? It engulfs it, creating a vesicle in which it brings it to a lysosome. And if we remember, lysosomes are organelles that act kind of like as the trash man, the garbage man. They they're destroying this molecule right now, but then they're going to take the trash out. So they get rid of all of the waste for the cell. And to the right, we see those solutes being released from the cell, and that the vesicle then just rejoins that cell membrane. So now we're going to take a look at the activity 1 cell transport graphic organizer. I'm going to make a very quick and short video recapping that. It's extremely important that you do this for your own benefit, because it's going to be helpful for you to organize all of these thoughts and topics that you've just learned, or things, I guess, that you've just learned about cellular transport onto one page that you can look at that includes both terms and images. And it's also something that's going to help you with your independent practice immensely. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and get that started, and I'll see you shortly.